continuing with personalities from Ramayana. And this morning, the personality we're going to be discussing is the person you see on the screen here. The 10-headed Rakshasa Ravana. So a little stepping back from the Leela, or the personalities in the Leela. The personality of Godhead makes his appearance in this world for different reasons, according to Hanuman in his prayers to Lord Ramachandra in the 5th canto, chapter 19. He says the Lord not only appeared to kill Ravana, but also to teach lessons. And there's several lessons. And by killing Ravana, he relieved the earth and the universe, because he was a universal terrorist, from a very powerful person who was bent on wickedness and very powerful. So Ravana, as we know, he is one of three forms of Jai and Vijay, or one of forms of Jai, who came to this world from the heavenly planets. And our understanding is it's irregular that someone from Vaikuntha comes and performs the activities of a demon. It was done on the external reason because of the curse of the Kumaras. The internal reason is Jai and Vijay wanted to satisfy Narayana in his chivalrous mood by providing some combat, some chivalrous opposition to his almightiness. Ram is that Narayana, and Jaya is that Ravana. And this life, Ravana's life, is the subsequent life to Hiranyakashipu. And Hiranyakashipu didn't just torment Prahlad, he was also a universal terrorist, but very powerful in the previous yuga, Satya Yuga. So this is Treta Yuga, and the power of Ravana is less than the power of Hiranyakashipu, etc. We'll hear some more as we're going along. But it's a pastime. And pastimes means it's being conducted by the Lord's internal potency. Everybody that's doing everything is conducted by the Lord's internal potency. The opposition of Ravana is being conducted by the internal potency, although he was very, very, very involved in the external potency for sure. For sure. But he was checked. So we'll spend some time discussing his lineage, both from his mother's side and from his father's side. From the father's side is illustrious, and from his mother's side is the opposite. From the Daitya clan, or Rakshasa clan, or the Dhanava clan. And hopefully you've received the handout, or the glossary in genealogical charts. I'm going to be referring to page 23 and 24 as we go along. So if you have that handy, you can open it up. Let us begin. So from the father's side, we are seeing on the screen here Lord Brahma, of course, the original person in the universe. And he had a number of direct sons, Palashya being one of them, born directly from the body of Brahma. And we'll hear the detail, but Palashya, by a very interesting arrangement, he married the daughter of the sage Chinnabindu. And from their combination, a very, very elevated son, Vishrava, became their child. And Vishrava had two wives. The first of them was a very elevated personality, the daughter of Bharatrashimuni. You see her names on the screen. There are different names by which she was known. And a very elevated son was born, who became the step-brother of Ravana. Vaishravana, who later became Kubera, the treasure of heaven, but it was residing in Lanka for some time. We'll hear the details. But there was a second wife, that her name is Kashi, and that's the Daitya side, and we'll hear the details. But the combination between Kashi and Vishrava, great Brahmana sage Vishrava, there were 4 children. Ravana was the first, or Dasagriva. Dasagriva means he had 10 necks, or 10 heads. Second brother of Kumbhakarna, third brother of Vibhishan, and the Shurpanaka was the daughter. 3 sons, 1 daughter. So now let's go to the history. Palashya, great sage, was engaged in austerities and meditation, because that's the age, it's the age, and yajna, fire sacrifices, and top of, or on the slopes of Mount Meru. And he was absorbed for a long, long time. And some young girls came to that same place, and they were playing together and making noise and doing what young girls will do. And after some time, Palashya became irritated and uttered a curse that they could hear that said, next time I even see a woman, she'll immediately become pregnant. So they scooted, they disappeared. But there was one girl that didn't hear that pronouncement, and that was the daughter of Chinnabindu, was a sage, and she came by the area where Palashya was doing his meditations and activities. And just by seeing her, she immediately felt pregnancy. So she went back to her father, saying, I don't know what this is. I had no contact with any man, but I'm feeling pregnancy. So Chinnabindu went deep into meditation, which allowed him to understand what happened. So he, Chinnabindu, went with his daughter, doesn't give her name, to the ashram of Palashya and said, by your special power, the means of my daughter becoming impregnated was possible. And now that she has a small child in her womb, you kindly accept her as your wife. And Palashya agreed. And the child, he said, will be a very elevated personality. And when he was born, his name was Vishrava. And after some time, Vishrava, who was also like his father, Palashya, engaged in similar fashion, was approached by Bharatrashimuni. Bharatrashimuni requested Vishrava to accept his daughter. You see her names. Different texts have different names for Bharatrash's daughter, that he accepted, and one son was born. So Vishrava has one son plus 3 sons and 1 daughter, total number of children. So Ravana was the name of that first son. And like his father, he learned everything from his father. He followed his father. He went deep into the forest and underwent severe austerities. It said he fasted from food and water for 1,000 years. Must have been pretty lean and thin. Brahma came, very pleased with his intense austerities, and asked, what benediction would you like? And his answer was, just seeing you is sufficient benediction, but if you so desire, he asked for a material benediction. He said, I would like the service in this universe of a Lokapala. Pala means protector of the universe. So Brahma was very happy. He said, I already have 3, and I do need 1. The other 3 are Indra, Chandra, and Yamaraj, in the different directions, because they have residences in Manasotara mountain, in the 4 directions. So you become Lokapala, and you'll also take the post of Kuvera, the treasure of heaven. And the 3rd benediction given was by Brahma was a Pushpaka Vimana. It then became the property of Vaishravana, and Brahma left. But Brahma didn't give him residence, so he, Vaishravana, went to his father in the Pushpaka Vimana and asked his father, where's a suitable place for me to reside? And his father said, long ago, there's a place, Lanka, that was previously built by Vishvakarma for Indra, and then inhabited by the Daityas, but they left, so it's now available. You can go there. So he went there. Now, we'll take a look at some images you can see on your screen. Bharadraj talks to his daughter, that's in the lower right, and offers her to Vishravas, that's in the center, and who received her in his hermitage on the left. And you see from the sky above the hermitage on the left, there's showers of flowers, and their son was Vaishravana. Vaishravana, you see, put Pushpaka. That's Vaishravana is crossing to Lanka, which is on the left, the city of Lanka. It's being guarded by somebody who's a doorkeeper. And Vaishravana is up in the upper right, and he's in his ashram. As his son, Vishravas, his son Vaishravana, is going to Lanka to reside. Then we'll go next. Let's go back here. See the chart. There's Kai Kasi, who is the daughter of the Rakshasa Sumali, and his wife Ketu Mati. We're just getting the background of the lineage of Ravana. So in your charts, page 23 and 24, you'll see the patriarchal, or the father, from the father's side, Ravan's lineage, and he's the son of Vishravas, as you see on the chart on your computer screen. He's the son of Vishrava, but the mother is Kaikashi. Now, let's go to the next page, 24, and you'll see Kaikashi's name. She's the daughter on the far right, in the middle. She's the daughter of Sumali and Ketu Mati. And Sumali had two brothers, we're going to hear, but just take a look at the chart. Malyavan, Sumali, and Mali. Three brothers. And they're in the Daitya dynasty, and they're the three sons of Sukeshu and Gandharva wife. So we'll, when you read Ramayana, you'll hear Sukeshu, but this is the chart to show where he fits in, and it goes back also to Brahma on the far left. So on the far right is Kaikashi. Kaikashi again is the daughter of Sumali and Ketu Mati. So now let's narrate that history a little bit. Around the same time as Vaishravana and all these activities and what he was doing, there were three Daitya personalities. Their names, Sumalin, Ketumali, and Mali. They also underwent great austerities for the purpose of achieving benedictions from Brahma. And Brahma came and gave them benedictions, and then they became very powerful. It doesn't say specifically what their request of Brahma was, but they wanted power, and they got power, and they started misusing that power. They were traveling here and there and attacking rishis and sages and even demigods. They were very bad people. They then approached Vishwakarma in that powerful position. They approached Vishwakarma, who is the architect of the demigods, and they had requested Vishwakarma to build a
recording in progress.
To build a special place for them. Vishwakarma replied, "I've already built something. I built it long ago for Indra, and it's been since abandoned, and it's in Lanka, so you can make that your place of residence. It's already built." He used home, but it's a nice one. Lanka's palace. So they went there. But because of their terroristic activities, there was eventually a battle. And in the battle, Lord Vishnu became involved to quell the demons, and they fled. At least two of the brothers fled to Patalaloka, where they resided for some time. But Sumali remained on earth. And so the chart, page 24, you see where Sumali fits in. after some time, Sumali became married. Now let's see the details if that's described. Yeah. Not described how that marriage took place, but it gives the name of his wife. And from their marriage and their offspring, you see on the chart what their children were. And he had one daughter. And his daughter's name was Kaikashi. So he spoke to Kaikashi, having seen Kuvera or Vaishravana traveling here and there in his Pushpaka Vimana. He said, "You're of marriageable age, and I'd like to see you have a suitable husband. I think that the ideal person for you to go to would be Vishrava." So, because Vishrava is very powerful, through him you'll have powerful children, and then our dynasty will become powerful. That was his ambition. So, being obedient to Sumali, Kaikashi went to the ashram of Vishrava, and it's a very nice description. When she came to the ashram, he was engaged in a fire yajna and was just totally absorbed. And when you're doing yajnas, you don't stop. But after some time, when he completed, he turned his attention to Kaikashi and asked her who she was and what was her purpose in coming. And Kaikashi said, looking at the ground and scratching the ground with her toe, saying, "You're an all-seeing sage. You must know my purpose, who I am and my purpose." So with some meditation, he then understood who she was and her purpose. He said, "Very well, I accept you. I will accept you as a wife. But because you came at an inauspicious time, you should know that the children born of you will be fierce Rakshasas." And further it says, disfigured, ugly, fearful. But I don't want those kinds of children. Well, it's because of the time that you came. That's the way it's going to be. But as a concession, your youngest son will be famous as a pious man. So that was Vishrava's utterance, and that's what happened. Here's a painting. At the top section of the painting, there's Kaikashi going to the ashram of Vishrava while he was doing his fire sacrifice. He was disturbed because it was inauspicious, and he then indicated that he would accept her, but her children would be cruel and horrific demons, except for her youngest son, who would be virtuous like his father. And below the painting there's Vishrava at his ashram. There's his wife, Kaikashi, with Vibhishan on her lap. And then in sequence, the three other children, Ravana with the 10 heads, and Kumbhakarna, who's actually much bigger, and behind them is Shurpanaka. So now we have Ravana's birth. A very illustrious father, and a woman, a wife, mother, from the Daitya dynasty. So his mother, Kaikashi, also saw this Vimana, and they were envious. You have a stepbrother. Your stepbrother is Kuvera, and look at his opulence, and you're a meager fellow. Do something. So he took a vow to his mother, I'll become more powerful than my brother. So he went to the forest to do austerities, because that was the program during that time. And very, very, very severe austerities. The severe austerities included, for 10,000 years, no, his stepbrother, was 1,000 years. Ravana surpassed. For 10,000 years, he underwent austerities without eating. For 10,000, how do you do that? We are amazed at what Dhruva did, but that was 6 months. This is 10,000 years. And at the end of each 1,000 years, he cut off one of his heads. And then his head grew back. So when it was the 10th head was cut off, and it was offering the head into the fire, Brahma came. And Brahma was acknowledging his austerities. And what would you like? So he asked for the very same thing that Hiranyakashipu asked for, immortality. And the answer was, I'm not immortal. So then I will not be killed by this one, that one, the other one, the other one, the other one. And by his pride, he left out humans and animals, because they're puny, humans and animals. So the boon was granted, and Brahma gave him an important benediction. He gave him knowledge of divine weapons along with the weapons. And he gave him teachings about magic. So Ravana was really happy. And after winning these boons, Ravana then went to his maternal grandfather. You can look at the chart on page 24. His mother's father. He went to get Sumali to agree to let him be in charge of the Daitya or Rakshasa army. Sumali agreed. No opposition. Now, along with Ravana's austerities, we find in Ramayana that Kumbhakarna and Vibhishan also underwent austerities when Brahma came before them. Kumbhakarna requested sleep. One version of Ramayana says he wanted to sleep for several years. He was really into sleep. So that was induced, it is said in the Ramayana, that the demigods induced Brahma, don't give him anything. Incline him this way, because if he becomes powerful, everybody's finished. So sleep, and it was granted. And once, as he matured, he wandered through the universe devouring rishis, while his brother, younger brother, Vibhishan, engaged himself in study the Vedas. When Brahma said to Vibhishan, you may accept the benediction from me according to your desire, Vibhishan said, just that you're pleased with me, that's sufficient. My goal of life is already achieved. But my only wish is that my mind may always remain steadily fixed upon the path of virtue, even amidst the greatest difficulties, which was tested by having Ravana as his brother. And Lord Brahma consented. Now, when Ravana heard what Vibhishan had asked for, he was angry with him. What are you doing? We're not virtuous people. We're Rakshasa people. But that was pronounced by the father Vishrava, that the sons would be vicious except for the youngest son. So it's 3 sons, the youngest son being Vibhishan, and the middle son being Kumbhakarna, and the oldest brother or son being Ravana himself. Now, in Ramayana, those of you a little bit familiar with Ramayana, there's all kinds of other soldiers. Rahasta, and this one, that one, the other one. Look in that page 24, on the far right, you'll see their names. Prahasta is there by name. Now, their other sons, Kara and Dushan, are other sons. They're not brothers, they're cousins. And they're very powerful, and they were, from the same dynasty. So once he has all these big powers, Ravana goes off conquering this one, that one, the other one. And one of the places, so we're going to now hear of 7 curses that Ravana received in the course of his travels. One of the places he went was to ask his brother, his stepbrother, Kuvera, for Lanka. Because when Kuvera went to Lanka, it had been abandoned. Sumali and his 2 brothers had lived there. They left. It was empty. So Kuvera, or Vaishravana, lived there. So Ravana went to ask him for please vacate. I want Lanka. And Kuvera, or Vaishravana, went to his father. What should I do? Give it to him. He's too powerful. So there was a fight, and in that fight, Pushpaka Vimana was taken. So that's how Ravana got it from Brahma, given to Vaishravana, taken by Ravana. So Ravana is traveling around the universe in his Pushpaka Vimana, enjoying his power. And one of the places he went, as he's conquering demigods, is he went to Kailash. And at the gate of Kailash was Nandi. And when Ravana wanted to enter, he said, "You can't enter. You're not eligible, you're not qualified to enter." And then Ravana, being the kind of person he is, there you see the Pushpaka Vimana with Ravana inside with the 10 heads. He insulted Nandi, saying, who was making fun of what his face looked like. And he had a monkey-like face. So Nandi cursed him, saying, "A powerful monkey army will bring about destruction of your entire dynasty." And in retaliation, Ravana doesn't take no for an answer. You can't enter. So he went to Mount Kailash and started to lift Mount Kailash with his 20 arms. He's very powerful. And Mount Kailash was moving. And Parvati became very disturbed. What's that? Like an earthquake or something. And he said, "Don't worry." With his toe, he placed his toe on the mountain, and the mountain then crushed the arms, 20 arms of Ravana. And he was feeling such pain. He was calling out. Later, Lord Shiva gave him the name Ravana. Ravana means roaring, or he of the terrible, terrifying roar. And the assistants of Lord Shiva went to Ravana saying, here's what you should do. You're trained by your father, Vishravas, in the Vedas and in music, using that musical skill, sing nice music to glorify Lord Shiva. So his one version of Ramayana says that it was so painful that his veins were bulging from his arms, and he used them as musical instrument strings. And for 1,000 years, in great pain, he called out Lord Shiva's qualities, praising him. So here's the meaning. Ravana's name, and Ravana means his brother, half-brother, step-brother, means hearing distinctly. Shravana, Vaishravana, hearing distinctly. So 1,000 years later, Lord Shiva lifted his toe and summoned Ravana and heard his story and said he was pleased with him. And he gave him this name, Ravana, and he also gave him his sword, Chandra Hasa. Hasa is a smile or laughter. Chandra is like the moon. So he said, this is a very powerful sword, but if you misuse it, I'll take it back and you'll be destroyed. It doesn't say, what the condition of proper use or misuse, but he gifted him with this Chandrahasa. Sometime later, Ravana was traveling through a forest, and he came across Maya Dhanava. Now, who's Maya Dhanava? You hear about Maya Dhanava in different places. Maya Dhanava just means the dynasty, the Daitya or Dhanava dynasty. The Maya Dhanava was the son of Kashyapa and Diti. Kashyapa and Diti had two other sons that we know of, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So Maya was one of their sons. And there's a whole long description of how he became estranged. He married a very beautiful Gandharva lady, and they lived together. He built her a very fabulous palace in the forest because he has these mystic powers. And there was some dispute between them, and he was then left with a daughter and a son. So the daughter's name was Mandodari. So when Ravana came, very beautiful and very qualified, etc. So Ravana met them. They had this exchange, who are you? And when Maya Dhanava came to know that Ravana was the son of Vishravas, an elevated Brahmana, he offered his daughter in marriage. Ravana accepted. They became married. This was his first queen. Of course, he's not king yet, but he was his first queen. And later they had a number of sons. And one of those sons became Indrajit. But that Indrajit had different names. There was a loud cry, an outcry when he was born. So he was given a name, Megha Nada. Megha Nada means a thunderous sound. When the child was born, he screamed so loudly that everything shook. So Ravana gave him his name, Meghan Nada. Megha Nada. Later, he became Indrajit. So another name that he was known by, as you see in this text below, is Indra, the picture at the upper left, is Ravana, along with his son, went to have combat with Indra. And Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu are following behind Indra. When Ravana surrounded Indra with his army, and in the lower section on the bottom left, that's the sun. The conqueror of Indra, thus his name Indrajit, conqueror of Indra, tied up Indra and was taking him away. And in the upper right, it shows the three, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, on the left of that upper right image, appealing to release Indra. Indra was released, but Indrajit became celebrated, very powerful, son of Ravana and Mandodari. In this way, Ravana was traveling around the place, trying to conquer everybody. His idea was, I want to become the ruler of the universe. So all the demigods were one of the first targets. And one time, he was passing over a forest, and down below he saw a very beautiful girl. And being, Ravana, he wanted to enjoy the beautiful girl, like molest her. So her name is Vedavati, and when he descended in his vimana, Pushpaka vimana, he spoke really, surprising words to describe her body and her features and her this and her that, and you're so beautiful and so young, what are you doing in the forest alone? Doing austerities. So she replied that her father was a great sage named Kushadwaj. And Kushadwaj was a son of Brahaspati. And together with his wife, Kushadwaj and his wife, Vedavati was born as their daughter. Her name, she says, means she's an incarnation of Vedic speech, Vedavati. And as she became of marriageable age, various personalities, gods, demigods, Gandharvas, and so forth, Yakshas, Rakshasas, they approached my father wanting me as their wife. But my father was very determined. She'll marry only Narayana himself. So one of those Daitya kings named Shambhu was furious as he wanted to marry his daughter. So in the middle of the night, when Kushadwaj was sleeping, he killed him. And in the morning, when they woke up, and the wife of Kushadwaj saw that her husband had died, the funeral pyre was made, and she laid by the side of the fire and left this world. So she was the daughter was left alone. She's telling all of this to Ravana. And because this was the desire of my father and my desire also, I'm here in the forest. He wanted to know who are you and why you're here doing austerity. Because I'm waiting for Narayana to appear to become my husband. Then she said, I know all about you. So please go away, O descendant of Pulasya. For through my austerities I know everything that transpires in the three worlds. So she was very polite. She didn't depart from culture, but she knew who he was and they wanted no part of him. But, he doesn't take no for an answer. So he said some nice things, and then she didn't yield. So he grabbed her hair to try to force himself upon her. And, she had mystic powers. And with her, like a judo chop, she cut her hair and decided to give up her life because her hair had been touched by a demon. Here's her words from Ramayana. As I have been violated by you, ignoble wretch, my life is at an end. Therefore, Rakshasa, I shall enter the fire, the eater of oblations, right before your eyes. Since I, innocent and without a protector, have been violated, I shall be born again for your destruction. So that's the curse. I will be born, as you see on the screen. I'll be born again and be the cause of your destruction. She also asks for whatever sacrifices, austerities, etc. May I not be born from a human womb, but may Narayana become my husband. And therefore, in this narration about her life, it is said that she, from Satya Yuga, took birth in Treta Yuga as Sita, because Sita means furrow. So that's the Ramayana description. The curse number 2. So he was cursed by Nandi. Now he's cursed by Vedavati. And here's curse number 3 coming up. As he, in the course of his travels, in the Ikshvaku dynasty, which is the Sun dynasty here on earth, he went to Ayodhya and challenged the local king at that time. Anaranya was the name of the king. And big battle. You see on the right side, there's a white horse. On the left side also, a white horse. That's Anaranya. And he is doing battle with Ravana. And he was unaware of the invincibility of Ravana, but Ravana was very brutal to the soldiers. And before he died, he made an utterance. And the utterance was, in the future, a descendant in my dynasty named Rama will become the cause of your destruction. That's curse number 3. There's a little painting of Anaranya. So he's a bad person. So that's, he doesn't stop there. He went to the heavenly realm, again, where the Kuvera resided. He didn't get to Kuvera yet. Oh, that's coming up. So various places he abducted ladies, and the ladies who he abducted cursed him that he would die an ignoble death. This is now curse number 5, where he went to Kuvera's abode, where Nala Kuvera and Manigriva were. He saw the wife of Nala Kuvera, and she was very beautiful, and he did his thing, and she said, I know who you are. You're my uncle, and please don't speak to me this way. And he didn't stop. He grabbed her and raped her. And she went bloodied and messed up to Nala Kuvera, to her husband, and told him everything. And he uttered a curse. If Ravana, impelled by lust, forces himself upon any unwilling woman, his head will burst into 7 pieces. Now here, he had the ability to change shapes, where he shows one head, but he also has 10 heads. So there's the curse. And if that wasn't enough, here's another one. Brahma, these last two are disclosed after Indrajit is killed. He's in Lanka, the battle is going on, and he feels so terrible that Indrajit has been killed. And he says, from the time I expelled my virtuous brother, all misfortune has happened. So that's the fourth son, who we'll hear about tomorrow morning. So he said, and then he recounts in that little section of Ramayana the various other curses that he received. So here's two remaining curses. Curse number 6. There was an Apsara named Punjika Stali. And Punjika Stali, because Apsara Loka is in the structure of the universe, Vedic cosmology, it's much below. But those persons in those other regions have the capacity from time to time to go to Brahma Loka. They can travel about the universe. So she went to pay her respects to Brahma. Ravana happened to see her, and he raped her. And Brahma came to know because the Apsara told him. So he uttered a curse. "O wicked king of the Rakshasas, your head will split into 100 pieces if you ever try to forcibly rape another woman again." This is mentioned in that place during the Yuddha Kanda, where he's lamenting for his misdeeds. And one other one, I think I'm going to place this back with Nandi, but when at this disturbance of Kailash took place, Uma says, and he makes mention of this after the killing of Indrajit, "O wicked Rakshasa, women will one day become the cause of your death." So we're getting a picture. It's now 8:25. We're getting a picture of Ravana's misdeeds. And although he was so powerful, there were those more powerful. One of them was Kartavir Yarjana. Kartavir Yarjana, it's described in Canto 9, Chapter 15. Kartavir Yarjana had 1,000 arms. 1,000 arms. So he was one day, Kartavir Yarjana, was engaged with ladies in a river, and with his arms, he was stopping the flow of the river. And Ravana happened to pass by. And seeing the scene, Ravana wanted to enjoy with the ladies, and Kartavir Yarjana was very upset. So he grabbed Ravana, tied him up, and brought him back to his palace and put him in prison. But Ravana's grandfather, we know who his father is, right? Vishravas. His grandfather was Pulasya Muni. So Pulasya Muni came to Kartavir Yarjana's ashram and requested his release. So and so he was released. Here's some paintings. On the left side, Ravana heading up the river in his Pushkapa Vimana to fight Kartavir Yarjana. On the right, Kartavir Yarjana is in the river with his wives, who beg him to not fight Ravana. He fights Ravana's general, Prahasta. He didn't kill him, because we find Prahasta comes in Lanka, but he's his cousin. And Kartavir Yarjana is very powerful. In the left here it says Arjuna, but it's Kartavir Yarjana, who strikes Ravana with his mace, and he falls unconscious. He then captures Ravana and leads him away. On the right side, Pulasya, that's the sage on the standing there, Pulasya requested Ravana's release. And then at the bottom is Ravana's released, but is very ashamed. So Kartavir Yarjana, there we see at the bottom, on the left, there's his 1,000 arms, and facing him is Dasagriva, or Ravana with the 10 heads. Another situation where he was defeated was by Bali. This becomes important later in the Ramayana. But Ravana, in the course of his travels, he heard about the power of Bali, so he went to Kishkinda to challenge Bali. When he went there, Bali wasn't there. But Tara and others met him and said, he's not here right now, but if you wait a while, he'll come back. Right now it's in the morning, and he goes to the 7 directions and bathes in the sea. So if you want, you can wait, or if you want, you can just go find him in the southern sea. So he goes to, he can't wait for the battle. So he goes to the southern sea in his Pushpaka Vimana, comes in for a landing, sneaks up from behind, but Bali somehow knows that he's sneaking up from behind, and he just grabs Ravana, puts him under his armpit, finishes his morning duties, and then goes to the other 3 seas, comes back and sets him down. Ravana's really impressed. And he doesn't ask for battle, he asks for friendship. But Bali was more powerful than the powerful Ravana. So here's some old painting. Ravana, desirous of challenging anyone who had renowned strength, decides to fight Bali. In conversation with Tara and Sugriva, Ravana is told that Bali has gone to the southern ocean in order to perform Sandhya. The kingdom of Kishkinda is painted on the left. Ravana is astonished at the speed, strength, and prowess of Bali and asks for his hand in friendship. There we see in the painting, there's 10-headed and 20-armed Ravana. There he's facing Bali, and they're chewing pan together, and they make friendship. And yet a third, where he was soundly defeated, was Bali Maharaj. Now, this was not exactly, and there's different versions of Ramayana. He was challenging him, but another is he went for his help against Ram. When he went to see Bali, Vamana let him in. And normally, as you see, there's Vamana with his little kamandalu. He let him in. When he went to see Bali, he explained his purpose. Bali simply smiled and said, but, I know you like gold, so here's a mountain of gold, you can take it. There's diamonds and jewels and everything studded in it. So Ravana was really happy. Charity. Great. He tried to lift it, he couldn't lift it. And Bali laughed and said, this mountain of gold is the crown of Hiranyakashipu. You in your previous life were Hiranyakashipu. How big was Hiranyakashipu compared to you? You can't even lift his crown. And he was defeated by Vishnu. And you're also going to be defeated by Vishnu. You're a fool. Ravana left. Here's a painting from the British Library where he goes to the ashram of Kapila for a fight. And the way that it's described here, he wants to fight Mahapurusha, but Kapila finishes him. And on the bottom of the painting, Ravana falls down. So he's messing with the wrong people. Another painting is a slightly different version where it shows on the left, it's Mahavishnu or Garbhodakshaya Vishnu or Kshirodakshaya Vishnu reclining on Anantashesh. Lakshmi is at his feet. Ravana wants a battle. Of course, the Ramayana doesn't speak of this, it speaks of Kapila. But in any case, when he leaves, he abducts some ladies. Hundreds of women. That's Ravana's program. So now we're at 8:33, and there's a couple of celebrated other stories about Ravana. After Shurpanakha was killed, was mutilated, Lakshmana cuts off her nose and ears because she was threatening Sita to devour her. There's a big battle with the 14,000 Rakshasas headed by Kara and Dushan. And that adventure becomes known because Akampana comes back and tells him what happened, tells Ravana what happened. So Ravana becomes really angered. He's seeking advice from Maricha. Maricha warns him, don't. Ram is too powerful. Leave it alone. Be happy with your so many wives and your kingdom, and don't destroy yourself and the kingdom. Then Shurpanakha comes. You see her in the center of the painting, mutilated, screaming, and manipulating her brother. He wants to know, who is this Ram? How brave is he? Of what conduct and what caliber is he? And for what reason he entered the highly inscrutable Dhanava forest? What is the weapon that Ram, by whom these many demons are killed in war? Likewise, Dushashana and Trishira are killed, and even the unkillable Kara is killed. Oh, lady, with fascinating limbs, who disfigured you? That you tell. That's interesting English. Please describe. So she describes, and she lies. She said, oh, this happened when I was trying to get Sita for you to enjoy, and they check me and take revenge. But the way to take revenge, she gives the plan, abduct Sita, and Ram will become weak. So as you know, Ravana goes back to visit Maricha. Maricha is shocked that he's still thinking like this, gives his advice, and Ravana is this time not to be deterred, and he commands Maricha, either you do what I'm saying or I'll kill you. Maricha said, better to be killed by Ram than you. So I'll do it. So he appears as the golden deer. When Ram goes after the golden deer, there's the celebrated entrance of Ravana. You all know these pastimes, so I'm going quickly because time is also. He speaks very boldly, lustfully. Now, notice in the painting, this is a B.G. Sharma painting, it shows Lakshman Rekha surrounding that little cottage. which is not within Valmiki Ramayana, but it's in some of the other Ramayanas. And, Sita is a cultured lady. She's seeing, she's not dull, but she sees somebody even dressed as a sadhu, so she speaks very respectfully and offers what you offer a sadhu when they come to your residence. He speaks, beautiful language, glorifying her limbs and her this and her that, and she's shocked to hear him. And then the rest is history. He grabs her. She's not ready to submit to him. And so he abducts her and flies off to go back to Lanka, which was the plan all along, made up with Maricha. As she's being abducted, Jatayu sees. Jatayu attacks. Beautiful painting. Look how big the claws of Jatayu. He's just grabbing one of the donkeys, pulling his chariot, pulling him in the air. Big fight. Ravana is very powerful. Jatayu is very old, but still he's like an intense battle for some time. And eventually Ravana cuts off the wings of Jatayu and scoots away. And we, know that Sita threw some of her jewelry in a piece of cloth on top of Rishimukh mountain as they were traveling. Perhaps someone will know which direction it went, etc. Sita's back now in, there's Ravana, our friend, in Lanka, and he instructs the Rakshasis to break her will because she refuses to submit to him. And he's concerned about the curse of Nalakuvera, that if he forces himself upon Sita, then his head will crack in 7 pieces. He doesn't want that. So he's convinced that he can lure her because he's done it so many times before with other ladies. But Sita cannot be deterred. She's not intimidated by the Rakshasis. Eventually, he comes, you see in the tree, there's Hanuman, little monkey in the tree. And he goes back after failing to persuade Sita. We're going to hear more. But the Sundarakanda interaction with Hanuman and Sita in detail. Hanuman is arrested to be brought before Ravana. That's why I'm showing this, because this is about Ravana. What figure, what courage, what strength, what splendor, and what assortment of auspicious marks, alas, this king of demons has. Had this lord of demons perhaps not strong in not righteousness, he would have been a protector even of the world of celestials, together with Indra, the lord of celestials. So he's admiring his strength and his features, etc. Here's a painting where he's brought tied up before Ravana, and Ravana asks him some questions, and Hanuman is indignant, tells him, you should give back Sita, or you're finished. No way is he going to do that. He speaks very, very boldly, very strongly. Now, the ropes that he was tied up with was a mystical rope that they're broken by Hanuman's power. And he's now assuming a very big form. Ravan wants to have him killed, and Vibhishan says that's against the codes of a Kshatriya. You don't kill a messenger, you can punish him in some way. So it was decided to put his tail on fire because monkeys like their tail. And they do all that business. Hanuman sets fire to Lanka and then returns back to give the word to Ram that Sita is safe, but come quickly. So now we're still on Ravana. Ravana, after this terrible experience with Hanuman, calls his ministers for their wise advice. And all the ministers do is just praise themselves, their strength, and Ravana's strength. You see him at the top of that painting. And you don't have to worry about anything, Ravana. We'll take care of it. I have this strength, that strength, and the other strength. While this ministerial talk is going on, Ravana's maternal grandfather, remember he got the army from his maternal grandfather. Now that same maternal grandfather is advising him, Malyavan is advising him to return Sita. Ravana just pays no attention. Malyavan quietly departs. He asked Kumbhakarna, and Kumbhakarna said, he blasts him. I like this. Why are you asking after the fact? You ask ministers before you do something, not after you do something. Shame on you when you're abducting another man's wife. This is horrible. So, you deserve to be destroyed. But because I'm your brother, I'll support you. You can count on me. And when it comes Vibhishan's turn, he gives very strong advice. And Ravana doesn't like his advice. He kicks him in the chest. And Vibhishan leaves. It happens 3 times. Thrice Ravana's younger brother Vibhishan argues with Ravana that he cannot possibly withstand such an army, Ram's army, and should hand over Sita to obtain peace. They disagree. Vibhishan leaves, along with the 4 ministers. So there you see Vibhishan with folded palms before Ram and Lakshman. And behind him, there's his 4 ministers. And this is, tomorrow we'll hear more about Vibhishan. So, Vibhishan is now with Ram. He gives some suggestions how they can cross to Lanka, and they cross to Lanka. And the battle begins. Again, we're focusing on Ravan. So we hear in the battle section, Yuddhakanda, there's Indrajit, who can fly in the sky and make himself invisible and so on. And this is a misplaced painting. So forget this one. Before the battle begins, the Angada, Vali's son, is sent as a messenger to make the request of Ravana, let's have peace, just release Sita. And he's very insulting. They want to harm him, but they don't harm him, and he escapes and comes back. So now this is where that Indrajit shoots serpentine arrows that should be in reverse order. I'll fix it. So you see on the right side of the painting, there's serpentine persons being tied up by these arrows that are like serpents. And most importantly, Ram and Lakshman both are tied up by these arrows. I'm going to go quickly because we have 13 minutes before 9 o'clock. So there's another painting. They're tied up by the arrows. What to do. Again, on the left side, and is Ram and Lakshman. Indrajit goes back and celebrates. Indrajit returns to the city in triumph and is congratulated by his father. Ravana makes Trijata take Sita in the Pushpaka chariot over the battlefield to see her husband lying slain. They think he's dead. Well, fortunately, Gruda knows what to do. Gruda comes, and the serpents are afraid of Gruda. They leave the bodies of Ram and Lakshman alone. And they weren't dead after all. So next in the Ravana story is engaging his brother, Kumbhakarna. So there's some really nice paintings here with Kumbhakarna being woken up. First, he's got this benediction to sleep a lot, and they need his help, and so they come in large numbers to wake him, beating drums, beating him, poking him, this and that, and after a big ordeal, he wakes up. And when he wakes up, they're ready to offer him everything, eatables, anything he wants, volumes and volumes and volumes. And he then, now refreshed, comes before, see how big his body is, comes before Ravana, who's on the left with his 10 heads, and he's ready for service. So go to battle. The giant body of Kumbhakarna is hard to battle, and you see him, he's eating soldiers, Vanaras. There's another interesting painting of Sugriva doing battle with Kumbhakarna. Ram and Lakshman ready to do battle with Kumbhakarna. There's some Vanaras with holding giant boulders and so forth. Kumbhakarna. Eventually Kumbhakarna is destroyed. His limbs are severed by the arrows of Ram, and Ravana is in disbelief. There's another painting showing Kumbhakarna losing his head, and Ram's arrows piercing his body all over. This is since the venerable Vibhishan, my pious brother, was banished by me, this bitter fruit of that painful deed has come to me. He speaks these words, and he sends many more soldiers or generals listed on the left, and who slays them is listed on the right. It's a Uttarakhanda battle, he's in the thick of it. Here comes Indrajit again, with his mystic powers and things like that. And he fires this Shakti Shaila weapon. There's Ravan himself, pierces Lakshman with his Shakti Shaila weapon. Everyone's in great distress, including Ram, but on the right side there's Jambavan, who has all confidence in Hanuman, who says, if that brave Hanuman is surviving, the whole army, even if killed, is unhurt. On the other hand, if Hanuman has given up his life, we're all dead, even though living. He has a lot of trust and confidence, and Hanuman is pictured there on the left with his club by his foot. So Hanuman is sent to retrieve the healing herbs of the Gandhavadana mountain. So there he goes, soaring through the air, bringing back the mountain. And here he's arriving, and the herbs are administered, and Lakshman revives. After some time, there's another battle with Indrajit. There's some detail that Ravana is involved with, but Indrajit, having skill in many things, he is doing a yajna. Vibhishan knows about the yajna. He knows where the place is. He sends Lakshmana. Lakshmana goes there. There's a battle between Lakshmana and Indrajit. The yajna is interrupted, kind of a mystic yajna that he would ensure victory. And back and forth, back and forth. Lakshman is wounded, but Indrajit is slain. And this is where when Ravana laments, all my misdeeds. But then he takes another turn, and he said the
Recording stopped.
The problem behind all of this is Sita. So he goes storming off to the Ashok garden ready to kill Sita. And Suparshva, one of his ministers, not a soldier but a minister, he persuades Ravana not to kill Sita because the problem is not Sita, the problem is Ram. So go, king, go. Go kill Ram. He comes out of the palace, ready for a big battle personally with Ram. He's defeated with, as the painting shows, with Ram riding on the shoulders of Hanuman. And Ram says, you can go back and take rest tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow. He's humiliated. The next day, big battle. There we see on the right, there in the backside, that's the kingdom of Ayodhya, the palace. On the left side is Ravan, on the right side is Ram and Lakshman, and the Vanaras. A big battle. Ravana is ready for battle, and Ram and Lakshman are also ready for battle. And battle, back and forth and back and forth. The indication is given to Ram how to kill him, and so he fires his arrow, and Ravana is slain. We have 5 minutes left. Going fast. So the destruction of Ravana brings an end to the whole Rakshasa clan, which was the purpose of Ram's appearing to begin with, along with other purposes. There's a beautiful painting, Ravana being slain. And here it is in 3 different images. On the upper right, that's Ravana receiving an arrow in his chest. And the bottom left, there's Ram releasing that arrow. Here's an up-close picture. And another up-close picture. Ravana is screaming in pain as he dies. After he dies, there's a whole scene of Mandodari's grief and different persons pacifying Mandodari. The instruction Vibhishan to perform his funeral. Vibhishan doesn't want to. Ram insists that he must as part of the duties within Vedic culture, so he performs his funeral. And celestial flowers are poured upon Ram because the purpose of his appearance has now been fulfilled. The removal of this scourge of the Earth planet and the universe of the terrorist Ravana. So there's a picture of the life of Ravana, his qualities. I want to read one little section. I can find it quickly. Characteristics of Ravana. Yeah. He never tolerated or accepted that someone could be better than him. Although it was already demonstrated, Kartavir Yarjana, etc., were better than him. If he couldn't conquer, he made friends. Ravana was unyieldingly lusty with so many ladies, including his niece, his brother's daughter. He killed Shurpanakha's husband. As the older brother, he arranged for her marriage. In the course of traveling here and there, he lost it when he was confronting the army of where her husband was from, and he killed her husband. And all he said was, "Gee, I'm sorry. You can be in the care of Kar and Dushan. They'll look after you." he not only became destroyed, he brought about the destruction of his entire race and dynasty by the superlative offense of kidnapping Sita. A consistent trait is he never listened to any advice. And there's many examples. Vibhishan, we heard 3 times. Kumbhakarna, his brother, couldn't listen. His maternal grandfather, Malyavan. There's a passage where Vibhishan's eldest daughter, Vibhishan had daughters, eldest daughter was Kala, and Kala told Sita that an old and wise minister named Arvindya warned Ravana of the imminent destruction of the Rakshasas at the hand of Ram. Ravana ignored him. Maricha warned him. Kuvera advised Ravan to give up his wicked ways. He surrounded himself with yes men who would just praise him and so forth and so on. He never cared for anything righteous or virtuous. He just did whatever he wanted to do. But these are some of the traits that are to be avoided. One of the reasons of hearing all of this, bad stuff, is as in the process of surrender, we're to give up unwholesome things that are detrimental to the bhakti. And he's like the personification of all those. In the commentary of the Sri Vaishnavas, by about the different persons, Kara, Dushan, etc., that were killed by Ram, they each represent some undesirable characteristic. And Ravana particularly was lust and pride. Now, not that others who are demons don't have lust and pride, but he is particularly profound. And it'll bring destruction. Although it may bring apparent success for some time, it'll bring destruction. And if it's required that the personality of Godhead, Vinachaya Chaduskritam comes, and that's certainly a major part of the whole of Ramayana. So we heard this morning about Ravana, his ancestry, his characteristics, his exploits, his demise at the hands of Lord Ramachandra. So the 9 o'clock bell is ringing, and we don't have time for questions. What we'll do, if there is some time tomorrow, we'll entertain some questions. The discussion will be much shorter with Vibhishan than with Ravan. So hold your questions, write them down. We'll discuss them tomorrow. Hopefully there should be time. Should the Prabhupada be there?